It is what my screen says, but no.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I have a couple of questions. I'd like to relate the incident that's been happening weather-wise here. Last week we had 5 days of sunshine in a row. I was up early in the morning at sunrise, and they were going absolutely nuts with the chemtrails. There were planes flying over 2 at a time next to each other at sunrise and producing the clouds, which I don't think there would have been clouds had the planes not been up. And I was wondering if there was a relationship between HAARP and the chemtrails, or with the lack of clouds, that they needed to create clouds.
Well, that is one of the aspects of HAARP, is that it can be used as a frequency activator for either aerosols, which are like chemtrails would be, or for biological warfare. These are either viral or biological agents that are put into the battlefield, and the design is that these are activated by certain frequencies that are broadcast into that field. So everyone is going to get infected, as you will, or covered, if you will, but if you move out of the target area and you're able to target these frequencies in a certain area, then those agents are activated to be particularly virulent, and thus you spare your forces and only influence the forces that you want to have activated. It's really not out of the range of technology. The real question is, what are chemtrails? Why are they being dropped over civilians? And what's the plan? Who's in charge of it? I didn't really know much about it until I met Jonathan Elenoff and some others, and they showed me some photographs of, because I do a lot of flying, and I can tell you, nobody lets anybody put anything in Jet A. Nothing's going through the jet engines of commercial aircraft. What they showed me were nozzles that were actually fitted on the craft, and they were dumping chemicals straight out of those nozzles into the atmosphere. And they linger, and they form these shady kind of bands across the sky. Why? I have no idea, but you are correct. Somebody's dumping chemicals into the air.
They're all over the place. Now, how are they filling the planes? Are they canisters underneath with nozzles?
The pictures that I've seen, they look like 55-gallon drums in the cargo area of the plane.
Okay, with tubes connected straight to the nozzles that are on the outside of the plane.
Right, they get to a certain altitude and they turn on either from ground control. I don't think the pilots have anything to do with it because I just know too many pilots, and I know a lot of retired pilots. I hang with them, and to their knowledge, nothing like that has ever happened. Yeah. But you can definitely tell the difference between a contrail and a chemtrail.
Well, there's no doubt about that. Brooks, thanks. We'll come back with some final phone calls with you right here on Coast to Coast AM. Our next program, by the way, Steve Quayle joins us, and he's got all kinds of information about the New World Order. We'll be right back. Brooks, even though you demonstrated this ability to move clouds, are you perfecting that at all, or have you moved on to something?
Yeah, I've moved on. The searching for oil and gas in the ground was, believe me, the mud and the snow and the rain out there in the oil fields is not the place that I wanted to continue my career. The technology, however, is pretty interesting, and it can be safely used. And actually, we're getting to the point now where you could almost use it receive only, which means you don't even have to broadcast a very strong signal, maybe 5 or 10 watts, something very benign. There's plenty of noise, RF noise in the environment that you can use it as your stimulating frequencies and just listen to the ground, and you'll pick up everything you need to know, at least down to around 3,000 feet, which is where most of the oil discoveries on dry land are made anyway.
So let's review HAARP for a bit before we go to final call. So initially when it was created, you think it was for a communication device to submarines and other areas, and then eventually...
That was the big sales plan that it was going to be used to improve secure communications with the submarines, which are pretty isolated. You can't communicate with them once they're underwater. They have to come to the surface and trail a long antenna behind them to gather information. And getting that information there without it being listened to it was a matter of top security, because we were in a very tense time in the mid-'90s when this was first put together. But the side effects that were discovered from the power and the usefulness of this system is what makes it particularly interesting to them. And I think now the side effects are becoming more interesting than the communication effects.
All right, back to the phones we go. Port Angeles in Washington. Hey, Thomas, go ahead.
Hey, George. Hey, two great shows back to back. It's been a real pleasure listening tonight.
Thank you.
There's a massive star on the face of Mars. It's a huge canyon, right? And you were talking about the what was it? The solar tap, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Is that enough energy to do something like that?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, if something like this went off, you're talking about 50 Mount St. Helens per second for about 2 minutes.
Because they never really have figured out where all the dirt went from our own Grand Canyon. And I'm wondering if, like, underneath the pyramids is a good, safe place to be.
Well, yeah. Well, there are lots of safe places to be on the planet if we just manage ourselves a little bit better. I think we're in the 21st century. We need to finally figure out that we're all on this world together, and we need to stop charging across the frozen tundra at one another with battle axes and figure out how to live together.
Brooks, would your device, which you created to look for gas and oil, could it be used, for example, to see if the Hall of Records might be hidden away at the base of the Sphinx?
Yes, absolutely. And some of that technology was used by some Germans in that region, and a void was found. And last year we released some pictures of a shaft that was dug in front of the Sphinx. And I've got pictures of crates that were hauled out of there, and the sandbags and people standing around there. And these are daytime shots, not nighttime shots.
That's pretty exciting. I would love to find out if there's anything there.
Well, I think the world would too, but as we discussed in the first hour, Zawi Hawass is very possessive, and he wants to make sure that Egypt releases these discoveries at its own free will, and we can't fault him for that, I guess.
Part of me, though, believes he already knows what's there, that he might already have been there, pulled it out.
Well, I think so, but the real question is he locked in like the Archaeological Society of the world is today? They have an ongoing argument with geologists of the world, you well know because of our mutual friend Michael Cremo, who's the forbidden archaeologist. Mm-hmm. I think that I don't know if he has a buy-in like that or not. In fact, I talked to one of his associates the last time I was in Egypt, and I said, do you realize what Zawi could get in tourist dollars if he really revealed conclusive proof that off-worlders were involved in the construction of the pyramids?
Oh, it'd be phenomenal, but he won't do that.
Well, we don't know that. There are discussions going on with him as we speak about that.
I asked him a question once, Brooks, about extraterrestrials in the pyramids. He went nuts.
Yeah, he did. How long ago was that? I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's about 1.5 years ago, I think.
Well, that's pretty recent, but he is softening. Lots of things have changed over there. The last time I was there, these tensions were there between the populace and the ruling class of Egypt. I don't know if you've ever been there, George, but there's no clean drinking water in Cairo. It's just horrible, the trash that's piled in these tributaries from, these canals that come off the Nile. This is where people get their drinking water. Yeah. There's no housing. It's a city of 20 million people, and there isn't a traffic light in it. There's just no support from the government at all to the people.
Well, that's why the uprising.
Exactly.
Let's go to Los Angeles. Andrew's turn on Coast to Coast. Hey, Andrew, thank you.
Hey, George, you're a great patriot, and you have a great guest. Yes, I've heard talk about HAARP being used for psychological purposes, like to affect people's emotions and maybe to pacify them. That was one question. Have you heard about that? Also, have you heard about the compressed air car? I believe it is originated out of Belgium, and the Tata Nono company has bought the rights or has their own technology for incorporating battery power and this compressed air. And have you looked into that? And continue your great work, both of you. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Answer to both questions. Last one first. Yes, the compressed air car we know about. It's a nice idea, but what they've taken out of the equation is all the energy it takes to compress the air. So it really is not that efficient, and it's kind of hard to get out there and find a compressor with 3,000 psi to put air back in the car so you can drive it. Nice idea, but it just the energy doesn't balance. I wish it did, but it just doesn't. Mind control with HAARP, absolutely. My colleague, Dr. Nick Begich, is well aware of that, has a lot of books out on it, and has done a lot more research than I have. Dr. Patrick Flanagan years ago also did research on that, and it's definitely present, and it definitely has been used in the battlefield.
Okay, back we go. Apple Valley, California. David, you're on Coast to Coast. Hi, Dave.
Hey, George. How are you? Good show.
Okay, all is well. Thanks.
Yeah. I want to ask the guest about these earthquakes. They had 9.0, which was in Indonesia, and then they had the 9.0 up in Tokyo. And these earthquakes, I totally believe these are man-made. These people are doing this. They are really evil people, and they are doing this really because I heard that this is the final closure for Pearl Harbor, for what the Japanese did in Pearl Harbor in 1941, and this is the closure. So they're picking these hits. One, because they want to thin the herd of the population of the planet, and two, because they have a beef with other countries. And does that make any sense?
I don't think you could rule that out, Brooks.
Well, when it comes to this kind of stuff, I guess I have to say I'm not a very good why person. Because when I travel to the world, whether I go to Tibet or China or Japan or Egypt, I don't really see people. I meet individuals, and they don't fall into this class of humans that are expendable in the way that some of the conspiracy theorists spout. And I don't know if I support it or not. I don't know any government or any super government that would want to attrit the human race. I think there are maybe militaries that want one-upmanship over one another. There may be political reasons for doing things to one another, and maybe it's just wars are us hard at work. But when it comes to annihilating masses of civilians, I really have a hard time buying into that. So I'm going to pass on that question.
We've got Austin in Atlanta, Georgia, first-time caller. Hi, Austin. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Great show tonight. You covered a lot of very interesting topics. The past couple of years in Georgia, we've had a lot of droughts and the water wars between, the tri-state area with Tennessee and Alabama and Florida, and Georgia as well. I was wondering, with all the bad things we've covered with HAARP, is there any, way you can actually use HAARP to create clouds, to create rain, to create, an atmosphere that has a lot of water coming out of it, to create drinking water and that type of thing? And you can answer it off air. Thank you.
Good question. Yes. Is there anything good about HAARP?
Yes, absolutely. That is something that is being looked at and has been published, not just in this nation, but other nations. Overhead of us are billions of gallons of water flowing every single day. Learning how to judiciously drop that water out of the air to make fresh water on the surface of the ground would probably be one of the greatest uses of HAARP if it could be done. We've tried seeding clouds. We've tried cloud ships that go out into the ocean and spray water vapor up into the air so that it can evaporate and form clouds. Great technologies trying to be used to put moisture back into the air to the point where it will fall back out of the air as rain and be used to water crops and not flood us out. As I said in the first hour, when we start